The Grand Prix at Blackpool Pleasure Beach will soon be taking its farewell lap, but we still don't know what's going to replace it or when it's going to be removed. So I'm going to take that opportunity to speculate on what Blackpool Pleasure Beach could build in place of the Grand Prix. So hello, I'm Scott and you're watching Your Experience Guide. With the Grand Prix about to take its farewell lap as part of its farewell event at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, I thought it was a good time to speculate on what may replace it. So firstly, we'll start with a little recap. Last summer at the Pleasure Beach, the Grand Prix closed and simply didn't reopen. And then towards the end of the season, there was quite a lot of rumours about it's never going to return, it's going to be a standing but not operating attraction. This was confirmed at the start of 2024 by the website that Blackpool Pleasure Beach have, their official website, and of course by the infamous tweet from Amanda Thompson OBE, something I'm not going to go over again. But it was confirmed in two different ways that the Grand Prix was indeed going to be SBNO for 2024. A few weeks later, it was confirmed that the Pleasure Beach would be running a farewell event for the Grand Prix where people would be able to pay £50 and take a farewell lap, or what now looks to be farewell laps, on the Grand Prix for one last time in 2024. It would have been reasonable to assume that the replacement for the Grand Prix would be another family attraction, something very similar to what the Grand Prix is. However, since the announcement that it was going to be standing but not operating, we've seen a couple of articles that suggest that Blackpool Pleasure Beach are thinking about taking the guest experience to unprecedented heights with the replacement of Grand Prix. Now, nobody really knows what that means. Are they going to break a height record? Are they going to do something unique? Well, it would be reasonable to assume that they want their record back from Thorpe Park, because I'm sure by now everybody has seen on social media the Pleasure Beach truck that was circling outside of Thorpe Park on the opening of Hyperia, when basically Pleasure Beach was saying, you've taken our record by 1 foot. It's 23 foot, but let's ignore that for now. How petty. And it was literally a van with Pleasure Beach logos on, basically saying, we're going to come back and take the record. So are Blackpool Pleasure Beach actually going to take the record? Are they going to take guests to unprecedented heights in the UK? Or was it simply a case of, yeah, you might have taken our record, but we're still going to build something better than you? So are they going to go down the icon route again? Not a record breaker, but just a really good modern roller coaster? Or should they look at breaking some records? Well, I did cover the subject of record-breaking roller coasters at the Pleasure Beach in an earlier video, which I will link at the top of the video. I can never remember which side it is when I'm filming, so it'll be somewhere at the top. But I did cover that subject of record breakers a little bit earlier on. Before looking at the possibilities of what Pleasure Beach may choose to replace the Grand Prix with, which aren't record-breaking roller coasters, it's worth remembering the space that Blackpool Pleasure Beach have to work with for this project. So firstly, we've got the Grand Prix station, which to me is the obvious place for the next roller coaster station to go in. It's quite a big building, it's got a roof, they can probably retheme it quite easily, repaint it, repurpose it to host a roller coaster station. But not only that, there is a big empty space next to it, opposite Wallace and Gromit, where they could put the queuing area, and then potentially have the queuing area opposite Wallace and Gromit, and then have walkways for exit passes, speedy passes, easy passes, all to go in the other side, more towards the Big Dipper end of the park, whereas the queue line, the main queue line without fast pass, without easy pass, could be opposite Wallace and Gromit. I feel like it's a really good area that they could use for a roller coaster station and a roller coaster queuing area. In terms of the space that the Grand Prix has taken up, obviously you've got the spirally bit, which is basically the bit where you start and end on the Grand Prix. You drive around in a massive circle, either gaining height, losing height, and eventually it tails off on a little track that goes all the way past Avalanche, up towards the big one, and then back round past Icon. So whilst you may look at the Grand Prix and think, oh, it doesn't take up a lot of space, it probably takes up a lot more space than we all realise, especially with that long bit of track that just runs all the way along the park towards the big one and all the way back. On top of that, there is a lot of dead space around that area that Blackpool Pleasure Beach are currently not using for rides, shows, catering, HB Leisure. There's literally a lot of dead space in that surrounding area. Immediately opposite the Grand Prix station is the old Millennium Dome. That's currently being used for storage. It used to be arcade, there used to be a ride in there. Currently, it's for storage. I believe there's old Valhalla boats in there, old Grand Prix cars in there. But currently, it's being used as a storage area and could potentially be where this ride's path may go. And then if we move on to the left of the Grand Prix station, or the right, depending on which way we look at it, but if you go towards Infusion, there is of course the old Planet Rock building. That used to be where the Black Hole, the Waltzers in the Dark was, then it was a 4D cinema, then it housed South Beach Musical, and then it was a magic show. And then they used it for various other things, whether it be Q&A sessions with roller coaster clubs, stuff for Journey to Hell Freak Nights, or just various different things that it's been used for. That building is currently not being used, could probably easily be knocked down, and again, be where a roller coaster's footprint now uses. And then there's all the space behind that as well, which is currently a car park behind the Bowlerdrome arcade building. Again, somewhere you could easily put roller coaster footers, roller coaster supports, and have a roller coaster running around that area behind the arcade building, coming back up towards the Grand Prix station where it currently is. There is a lot of space for Pleasure Beach to use, and I think that when we're all talking about what Pleasure Beach might do with this space, I think we're all looking past the fact that they can use a lot more than where the Grand Prix currently is. So it's time to talk about roller coaster manufacturers and look at potential roller coaster concepts that could replace the Grand Prix. I've chosen 3 manufacturers to talk about in this video, and the reason for that is these 3 manufacturers were all considered for the Icon project, or Construction 18 as it was known at the time, at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Those manufacturers were Mack Rides, Intamin and Vekoma. Now I'm only going to pick one roller coaster concept from each of those manufacturers for the time being. The reason for that is they all build a lot of different roller coaster concepts, quite a lot of them that would fit in this Grand Prix space, but quite a lot of them that are either very similar to what Pleasure Beaches have already got, or very similar to what other parks have got. So I'm choosing 3 different coaster concepts here that we don't currently see in the UK or modern versions of these roller coasters. So I'm going to start with Mack Rides. The reason being, obviously they've got a great working relationship with Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and people within both companies have got great personal relationships. So I'm going to start with Mack Rides, and of course they built Icon, the last roller coaster at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. So what do I think is a possibility from Mack Rides in this space? Now this might surprise people by me saying this given my opinions of this roller coaster in previous vlogs, but I think one of the Mack Rides extreme spinning roller coasters would actually be a great replacement for the Grand Prix at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Obviously it'd be another launched roller coaster, which are not cheap to operate, but you wouldn't need a lift hill. They're a popular roller coaster, extremely popular roller coaster I should say, and we've not seen a spinning coaster like this ever before in the UK. Okay, we've got Spinball Whizzer and we've got Storm Chaser. They are not anything like the Ride to Happiness. And if Pleasure Beach had their own version of the Ride to Happiness, then we know for a fact that even if the general public aren't going to rush to it, every single enthusiast is going to be like, I need to go on that roller coaster at Blackpool just to see if it's like the Ride to Happiness. Of course, theme parks and amusement parks do not build roller coasters just for roller coaster enthusiasts. But the point being with that is it would immediately be popular off the bat. As soon as that opened, there would be an influx of enthusiasts from all over Europe wanting to ride the new version of a Mack Extreme Spinning Coaster. Do I think a roller coaster like this is possible for the Grand Prix replacement? Well, yes, I do. I do think it would fit in this space. I think because of where the Grand Prix's footprint is, you could certainly use those spaces for maybe 1 or 2 launches. I don't believe the supports and the track itself would be difficult to fit in around existing attractions and into the space they've got. And I do think that this is something they might look at if they haven't already looked at. Moving on to Intamin, the best roller coaster manufacturer in the world right now, in my opinion. They are putting out incredible roller coasters like Tutatis, like Batman Gotham City Escape, incredible roller coasters. Planning to go and do Tiger in Finland soon at Linnanmäki, I've been told that is the best Intamin, or best modern Intamin. Really cannot wait to do that. Of course, they've built things like Red Force and Taron in the last 10 years as well. As good as those roller coaster types are, we're not going to see one of those at Blackpool Pleasure Beach unless they get a launch coaster that is tall enough to take back the height record in the UK. Now, if they're going to do that, they might as well go for the European record, which is obviously very high, but why not? But again, I did talk about that in another video, which I can't link in the screen again because I've linked it already at the start, but that was the one about potential record breakers at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. So I'm going to talk about another concept from Intamin, which is the Intamin Hot Racer, the single rail roller coaster. So the reason I've chosen to talk about the Intamin Hot Racer coaster concept is because it is a rumour that simply will not go away right now. Fans of the park are talking about it. There's rumours about it coming out of the park. There isn't one in the UK. It would be a perfect, unique selling point for them if another park isn't to buy one. So I just feel like that is a really obvious choice. They don't take up a massive amount of space. Again, they could use the long straight sections where the Grand Prix were for launches. There will be a crowd pleaser, something different, something we've not seen in the UK before, a single rail roller coaster of this type. And if it's marketed correctly, I think it will be a big hit for the Pleasure Beach. And finally, moving on to Vekoma. I think this is probably the least likely, and this is more a case of I'd really like to see Pleasure Beach do this. And I'm going to talk about the new Vekoma tilt coasters. Whether another park has one of these or not, these will be crowd-pleasing roller coasters. A very, very unique concept with the tilt track. It's completely different to what people expect from a roller coaster. When you talk about roller coasters to the general public and people who aren't enthusiasts, the idea of being on a bit of track like this and then it disconnecting and tilting like this and connecting to another piece of track whilst you're on it, stationary, in a roller coaster car, you talk to anybody who's not an enthusiast about that and they're just like, wow, that cannot be done, that is crazy, I wouldn't do it. But I guarantee that if one of these was at Blackpool, Alton Towers, Flamingo Land, anywhere, the general public would be like, that looks crazy, I have to do it. And I think that even for coaster enthusiasts, there will be a massive amount of fear factor on a tilt coaster. It's one of those where people will be like, I don't know how this works, but I've got to do it. I really don't think this is a likely option going forward for Pleasure Beach. I just don't see it happening. But I've included it because it's something that I really, really want to see in a UK park. And if that park was Pleasure Beach, I don't think it'd matter whether it was 100 foot, 150. I really don't think it'd matter. It would market itself. It'd be all over social media all the time. Whenever anyone goes to Blackpool, they'd be filming it. It'd be on YouTube, TikTok, Insta, Facebook, wherever. It'd be all over socials. Would you ride this roller coaster? And it'd be over sensationalized by everybody. And people would be like, I have to go on that roller coaster. And that is how I feel about this type of roller coaster. The one that's been talked about for Texas, I'm hoping that it will open eventually so I can go over and do it. But if we can get one in Europe, the UK especially, then yes please, let's have one of these coasters. Unfortunately, I don't see it happening at Blackpool, but I really hope it does. You might be wondering why I've not mentioned Rocky Mountain Construction, RMC. The reason being is I simply don't see an RMC being built at Blackpool Pleasure Beach for this project. Maybe in the future, maybe at another park, but I honestly don't think it's a possibility right now that we're going to see RMC at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which is why I've not included them in this conversation until this point. So to finish up, the three coaster concepts I've spoken about, I think will all be good options for Pleasure Beach if they were to choose any of those. If Pleasure Beach are to go for a roller coaster that's going to take us to unprecedented heights, or the guest experience to unprecedented heights, then I don't actually think it'll be any of the three coaster concepts I've mentioned. But on this occasion, I'll be very surprised to see them try and beat the record at Thorpe Park. But if they do want to do that, they do want to start a new version of the Coaster Wars, then I am all for it, because that would be great for the UK, especially if Universal do come along in 2030. So that's all from me in this video. If you have enjoyed listening to me ramble about new ride options for Pleasure Beach, please give it a like, there's a little thumbs up below. Please subscribe, there is a lot coming up on the channel. Alton Towers Water Park, Leesburg, America. There's loads coming up in the next couple of weeks and I am so excited to share all this content on this channel. Many thanks for watching, please comment and I'll see you next time.